This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
This is the Football Daily with Steve Crossman.
Hello there, welcome to the Football Daily. There is only one story in town, apart from, the Olympics. It's in the news, it's all over social media. Harry Kane's continued absence from the Tottenham Hotspur training ground. We've got the former Palace striker Glenn Murray with us and the former Watford midfielder Joby McAnuff as well. A little bit later, we're going to be joined by the former Spurs manager Harry Redknapp as well. If you don't know the story, Kane failed to report to training for a second day on Tuesday as this standoff over his future carries on. Of course, we know there's interest from Manchester City. He wants to leave, Joby, and that's not news. It's also not news that Daniel Levy wants him to stay. This, though, is a very big step in that standoff.
It is, and it's a surprising one, certainly from Harry Kane's point of view and not turning up. My big, issue with it is how does it get to this stage? I think it's the worst kept secret in football that he wants to leave to go and try and win trophies and win medals. He's given so much to that football club. He could have left previously. They wanted him there to get into the stadium. He stayed. Not only has he stayed, he's performing, he's scoring goals, his assists, speak for themselves. And for me, Daniel Levy letting it get to this point to really, I feel, back him into a corner where he doesn't feel like he's got any other option. And again, football is a game where these opportunities can be few and far between. It's a real crucial point in his career and a real crossroads, I think. And he just feels, from my point of view, that if he doesn't get out now, maybe he doesn't ever get out. And, for me, I feel like I have sympathy for him. I certainly see the fans' perspective, and he is under contract. He has got an obligation to go in and do his job. But I really do feel that he's been backed in a corner. And, the point I really want to make is I know he was sitting there the morning deliberating whether to go in or not. And that would not have been an easy decision for Harry Kane. No footballer wants to be in that position. And he must literally have been at, the last option in terms of whether he goes in or not. And it's just sad to see it's got to this stage and people are, getting disappointed with him and clearly his, future lies away from the club. It's just really disappointing. It's getting to this sour note.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with everything Joby said there. It's a real shame that it's come to this stage. What is it? 12 professional years at the club, I think, and he's given everything for the club. And I think it just boils down really to him probably progressing faster than what Spurs have progressed. He's outgrown the club. They're really fighting tooth and nail to keep him, and it is a shame that it's come to this stage. But I don't condone what he's doing, but I totally understand it from a player's perspective. It obviously hits the headlines. It's all we're reading about every morning. But I mean, this happens the other way around as well in the defence of Harry Kane. Football clubs can treat players in a certain manner that I'm sure Joby's come across in his time that would never make the papers or the press. I mean, they'll isolate you with the 23s. They'll train you on your own. They'll run you individually, and that sort of never gets highlighted. So this is a two-way street, and for all we know, there's maybe been a gentleman's agreement. We don't know everything there is to the story, but I know how I would feel if there was a gentleman's agreement last year and Harry Kane's gone out and performed the way he has, and then Tottenham aren't playing ball with what was agreed between them, possibly last year, and I feel as though he's left with no other option. And I mean, we look at Harry and he's a real clean-cut character, and I'm sure it's been a really tough decision, not only for him but in his household as well.
See, that's the first thing actually that struck me about this whole thing, Joby, is I don't know Harry Kane personally, clearly, but you get to know a lot about somebody's personality from how they handle themselves. We all know that Harry Kane is in this situation and has this conflict. I wouldn't have seen him as someone likely to do something like this. You described it as a crossroads, which I guess just shows any player knows that this step is a big step.
Oh, absolutely. I think, we all have moments in our careers where decisions have to be made. Again, we have certainly the club and their interests that we have to obviously adhere to and abide by, in most cases. But there is also a personal side to it, a personal situation. Again, for me, in his case, the service that he's given to that football club, I can't reiterate. We talk about loyalty in football and, again, Glenn alluded to it. I've been in situations where the club has decided they didn't want me to play for them anymore. You get thrown to the side, you're training with the kids, you're having to carry out maybe actions that you don't really want to in terms of going in, but you do it because, you're under contract from that football club and you've got no other option. And I just feel at this point now, I can't see how it has got to this. I really can't. My issue, again, is Daniel Levy, and I can't understand for the life of me how we're at the end of the summer, approaching the season, and a deal hasn't been made. And it might be that he has to swallow a few quid, to try and accommodate the move and get Harry Kane out. But it just causing more and more problems. Now they've got an issue. It's later in the window to try and get a replacement if he does go. And worst case, you're going to get him sat there disgruntled. It affects the rest of the squad. He's very, very highly regarded at Tottenham Hotspur with all the other players. And I'm sure they understand his situation as well. And again, it's just something that, I'm really surprised it's got to this point. I've got to be honest.
Have either of you been there, in that scenario where you either take that decision or think about taking that decision?
I was at Crystal Palace. I'd been there for one season. Simon Jordan was my chairman. Again, notoriously, what's the right way of putting this? Drives a hard bargain, let's put it that way. And I had an offer after 1 year, had a successful season to go and play in the Premier League with Watford. I think by that time I was sort of mid-20s, 25, 26. Was desperate to, of course, go and play in the Premier League. They'd had an offer rejected. I had a chat with my agent who basically said, listen, the only way this is going to happen is if you speak to the manager, who at the time was Peter Taylor, who'd just come in. Ian Dowie had just left, which again, I was really disappointed with. I loved working with Ian Dowie, and that was a big factor in me going to Palace in the first place. We'd lost 2 or 3 really key players that summer. I didn't feel like the club was going in the direction I wanted it to go to. I spoke to Simon and he basically just told me, you're not going anywhere. The only way you get out of here is to hand in a transfer request, not turn up, etc. So I had another chat with my agent, with my family. And I'll be honest, at that point in time, I didn't particularly want to go that far. I was grateful for Palace in terms of giving me the opportunity to play. I'd only been there a year. And I did feel at that stage, I probably owed them another season. But in hindsight, I didn't get to the Premier League then until I was in my 30s and only had 1 season. And in my opinion, if I'd got there a bit earlier, I feel like I could have had a bit more of a crack at it. And it's certainly something I look back on and think maybe I could have handled it differently and forced the issue a little bit. Why I think my situation differs, again, is what Harry Kane, I have to keep repeating, has given that football club. And he has given them absolutely all that he ever can. It's as loyal for me as you're ever going to get in modern day football. And I just feel that should be repaid and they should shake hands and, go on their way.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different to Joby's. I never managed to get out. It was my first stint at Brighton. I had a few family troubles. I decided that being in Brighton was too far away from home, and I wanted to go back. It was a genuine wish to move closer to my family, and I played all the cards. I told the truth that I wanted to move back north. That fell on deaf ears. I suppose I didn't try as hard as what I should do in training, always in the games. I felt as though I always tried to put my best foot forward, but it's difficult when you're in sort of a mental state of not wanting to be somewhere. And ultimately, the chairman just said no. You're not going anywhere. You're our player. You signed a contract, which he was well within his right to do. And I suppose I learned a hard lesson there, that ultimately that the football club's stronger. In this case, as we're talking about Harry Kane, I think for me, looking at it from the outside, it works best for both if they part companies now. They've got an unbelievable amount of years out of Harry and an amount of quality out of Harry. And if they want some money for him, a good amount of money, we're talking sort of the 100 million plus mark, this is the year to do it, because I think after this year, so when you turn 28, 29, 30, it's only downhill from that point. So I think I just, like Joby's mentioned earlier on, I just can't understand how it's come to this. Harry came out before the Euros. I want it sorted at ASAP. And he, more than anyone, knows exactly how Daniel Levy works. And he must really feel backed into a corner to act like this, which we all, I think, agree that is very out of character for him.
I'm really interested in what you said about I played all the cards, because presumably there is a process to this, and there's been a process to the Harry Kane situation. And if we think of it in that context as, okay, I want to go, I've done this, and now I've done this, is not turning up to training the last card? Is that the card that basically tells you here's a guy who's at his wit's end?
Yeah, that's the last straw. I think all the talking that needs to be done behind closed doors, between the two parties, they're at loggerheads. They're not in agreement, and Harry must feel left with no other option but to not go to train. And Joby alluded to earlier, everyone will be thinking Harry Kane's sitting at home, he's catching a bit of daytime television, doing a little bit of work, whatever. But he won't be. It'll be a real terrible part of his career. This will be eating him inside. Like we said, it's out of character for him. It'll be his household with his wife and his kids. It'll be a solace for him, but it'll be a real difficult period for them all. The outside media attention they're getting. Yeah, I mean, everyone just thinks, Harry Kane hasn't turned up. They read it in the morning newspapers or whatever, and then on to the next story. But this will be a real difficult time for Harry and his family.
Stephen, Kane can't move until City make an acceptable bid. This situation is on City. They're trying to get him on the cheap. This is just from an anonymous person, says Kane has given so much to the club. He's been paid millions of pounds to do it. Ben is a Spurs fan, says you get one career. He's been sold the dream when he signed a new deal. It's never flourished. He deserves to be on the biggest stage, and he has outgrown Spurs. I think, Joby, this is a really interesting part of it, and we're going to speak to a Tottenham fan in a bit, as I say. But ordinarily, you might think, star player doesn't turn up to training, most fans are going to be very angry and they're going to come down hard on the player. However, in this circumstance, it's Harry Kane versus Daniel Levy, and a lot of Spurs fans aren't happy with Daniel Levy, and it's Harry Kane, so it might not be that cut and dried.
Yeah, I think it will split opinions amongst the supporters for sure. But I think deep down, Spurs fans that have seen how much he's put in, he loves the club. He's made no secret of that. It's his club. I think they will understand to a certain extent why he's come to this point and this decision. And I would like to think that, again, it's not going to tarnish his legacy at that football club. Because for me, it's a situation that I think when you look at it, everyone was expecting Harry Kane to leave this summer. I don't think there'll be many Spurs fans sitting there, especially after those interviews go out before the Euros, expecting him to be in a Spurs shirt come the start of the season. For me, it's about that process and how that decision is made. And again, unfortunately for me, it just feels as though Daniel Levy's sort of thrown him to the wolves a little bit. I mean, again, as a player, if he goes in on that first day, I think he feels like he's losing a little bit of power. And I think he's just trying to take control of the situation as best he can. Again, is it the right way? Possibly not. But is it going to speed up the process? I would probably say yes. And ultimately, I think he wants to get out, and he sees this as the best chance to do that.
I think to be acting the way he is, and with such confidence, you need to know there's somebody there for you. You wouldn't be acting like this if you knew there was no takers, or if no one was willing to meet a certain valuation. So even though he'll be reluctantly doing this, I think he'll be acting in confidence that obviously Manchester City are willing to pay a certain amount of money that he thinks is acceptable for his services.
Is it going to happen, do you think, Glenn?
That's a tough one. I just can't see how it's going to work if he stays at Spurs. I mean, if for instance, if City go for Grealish and Kane ends up staying at Spurs, which Kane are you going to get week in, week out after he's given so much for the club? And I think he's been loyal, and I think they should respect his wishes of wanting to leave. And he came out early enough and made his wishes aware, and that was to us, to the public. I mean, I'm sure he's made his wishes to Daniel Levy in a personal note, sort of much earlier than what we knew about it. Will it happen? I hope it does happen for him. I think he deserves to win trophies. He's a fantastic goal scorer. And I think whichever way this plays out at Spurs, I think he will leave an absolute legend, and he'll be always welcome back, or I hope he will. That there will be a minority, I'm sure. But he deserves to win trophies. He deserves to have a glittering career for the player he is. So for Harry, I hope it does happen.
Joby?
Yeah, I think we've probably come too far down the road now, and I just don't think it's going to be a very positive situation to keep Harry there. I don't think his heart will be at the club anymore, which again is a big factor in performing and wanting to do well for that football club. I think his relationship now is probably irreparable. The fact that he will feel that he's been forced into this move. And I'm like Glenn, I just think the player he is. And I think we also have to really make a point of mentioning how he carries himself off the football pitch as well. You know, we talk about footballers as role models, people that kids want to look up to. You know, I can speak about Leyton Orient, him coming back and sponsoring the football club in times where, you know, it's been difficult in the EFL. You know, he is a real role model, and so many people do look up to him, and he's handled himself fantastically well off the pitch. And again, I think you have to take that all into account when you're assessing the decision he's made and the actions that he's taken. And again, I'm with Glenn. He should be at a club winning Premier Leagues, playing in Champions League finals, because his talent, you know, deserves, and his hard work has meant that he should get that opportunity.
Tell you what, let's bring a Spurs fan into the conversation. So Glenn Murray, Joby McAnuff and myself have been joined by Hunter. Evening, Hunter.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Hello, I'm all right. At the risk of sounding like I'm on Love Island, where's your head at?
That is proper Love Island. My head is, I don't know, just fairly disappointed, I think is where it's at the moment. I can't say I'm surprised that this has come around again, but it's just one of those that you sort of hope this wasn't the way that it was going to go. And yeah, just slightly disappointed with how this week started. I was quietly quite happy about the season, and that's dissipated quite quickly.
You say you're disappointed. Which part are you disappointed with?
I think I'm more disappointed with the decision not to come into training. I absolutely understand his decision to want to leave the club, and I've been listening to what you guys have said, and I absolutely agree that I think he's deserved the chance to go on and play for another club and challenge for titles and Champions League titles. But it's just the decision not to come into training, to just decide to do it with a nameless, faceless, and just hope that in the same way that worked for Luka Modric and Gareth Bale, that he'll be able to make the move that way. And I'm slightly surprised, seeing as, you know, he knows Daniel Levy better than anyone. I'm surprised that he hasn't watched him operate in the way he has over the last 10 years and gone, I know how he works, and this isn't going to do it.
Do you not think that you've mentioned Luka Modric, you mentioned Gareth Bale, that it seems like this is the only way to get a move when the opportunity comes, when you're working with Daniel Levy? I mean, it doesn't seem an easy way with him. That's the first point. And the second point is, amongst you guys, Spurs fans, will this tarnish his legacy at Tottenham Hotspur?
So absolutely, we'll take that on board. I think there is a way of going about leaving Tottenham. I think, you know, as much as Daniel Levy is one of the toughest people in the game to work with, and it must be horrible when you want to leave the club, Harry Kane will have to take some of the responsibility in signing such a long contract as he did, knowing that, you know, the way that Spurs operate, and albeit in 2018 things looked a little bit rosier, it's still a very long contract for a player of his quality to sign, knowing how Tottenham work. As to whether this will damage his reputation, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but absolutely not. I understand how these things are flippant. You know, the news cycle has been all over it the last couple of days. But when the dust settles, whatever happens, he's a Tottenham legend. He's one of our own, and I don't. If you hold sort of feelings against him, I don't know. I think you're a little bit reactive.
And do you think that the conversations you have with your mates who are Spurs fans, Hunter? Do you think that's representative of the general mood? Because you've effectively got Harry Kane, who Spurs fans absolutely love, on one side, and Daniel Levy on the other, who a lot of them don't at the moment. So it would seem strange to think that Tottenham fans would kind of be backing Levy on this, because if you're not backing Harry Kane, then that's the only place to be.
Yeah, I think most people will be in the same boat that I am, in that they can totally understand why Kane is choosing to leave or wants to leave, and that Daniel Levy is the main sort of person between him. I think you're going to find that there is actually a split, half who are sort of going, I understand it, and half are going, well, it's Daniel Levy's job to protect the club and protect the worth of the players. And I think what Daniel Levy has said all along is you pay the money that we think he's worth, or you don't get him, and that's where we're at now.
Hunter, lovely to have you on. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
That's Tottenham fan Hunter. Delighted to say that we can now bring in the former Tottenham manager, Harry Redknapp, is with us on 5 Live Sport. Good evening, Harry.
Good evening, lads. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not too bad.
Good.
I mean, how are you feeling with the Harry Kane situation?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, you're dealing with Daniel, and as the last caller just said there, I mean, Daniel has got what he thinks Harry is worth, and if he doesn't get that, he won't sell him. I mean, that is the fact. You're not dealing with a guy who's going to say, well, yeah, look, he's going to cause a problem if he's here. He won't do that. Daniel will just say, this is what I think he's worth. If I don't get that money, he stays here. He's got a contract, and that's what you're dealing with. Daniel won't budge. I mean, the problem for Harry, if he had a verbal agreement with Daniel last year, yeah, give us another year under Mourinho. If it doesn't work out, you can go. If we don't win anything, unless he's got something where it says, if we get an offer of 120 million or whatever, fine. Then he's got an argument with Daniel. But what Daniel's going to be saying is, yeah, I said you could go, but this is the valuation, and they're not meeting it, so you're not going. I mean, it's a difficult. I love Harry Kane. What a professional, what a great guy. He's just everything, But I just think he's in a very difficult position here, because he's with a man who just won't give in. I mean, he won't budge.
You mentioned there, Harry, about obviously Daniel and Tottenham having a price for Harry. But does emotion not come into it after what he's done for the club? I mean, he's just not another. He's not just another player. I mean, he's someone really special.
Glenn, I agree with you. Daniel don't do emotions. he don't do feelings. He don't do it. I'm telling you, you're dealing with a very cold, calculated man when it comes to business. He just will have that is the deal. You either meet the deal or you don't get the player, and that is that. I promise you, that ain't going to change. He won't budge. I know what he's like. It's black and white with him. It's not, well, yeah, Harry's a great lad. He's been fantastic. He's been the best player we've had. He's done this. He won't be bothered. He said to Man City, listen, Man City, how much you are worth, your owner is he's earning that in God knows how quick a time. Pay the money. If you don't pay the money, you can't have the player. And if you don't, that's how he's going to be. It's so difficult. Harry's in such a difficult position. They're trying to force a move, but I don't think he's going to force a move. I've seen it before. You've been around Glenn long enough. I've seen lads going, you don't sell me, I won't kick a ball. I had a player play for me once at West Ham, a top player who went on to be a manager. And he said to me, if you don't let me go and kick it in my own goal. I mean, Harry Kane, he said, I'll kick it in my own goal. Harry Kane is not going to do that. Harry's going to go out if he has to, and he only knows one way to be. He's going to go out and he'll play for his life, because that's what he's like. But hopefully it will get done before we get the season started, because he wants to move. I think it's in everybody's interest that he gets to move. It's great for him. It'd be great for Man City, whoever it is, if they're buying him. He'll take them on, I think, to maybe, they'll win the Champions League with him in the team. But if he stays at Tottenham, well, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a nice situation.
You know, Harry, like what you're saying about Daniel Levy and, being very cold and being very calculated, I'm sure what will have run through his head is the fact that Kane is obviously on this really long contract that he signed in 2018 and it runs out in 2024. So if he sells Harry Kane now, the cold, calculated part of him must know this is when he gets the big money.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is. Yeah, that is the pulling point. That is the point. Yeah, that is going to be the Harry Kane's big chance, really, that he might in the end have to think, well, hang on, he's getting a year older, his value's depreciating, do we cash in now? But he's certainly going to try to play. He'll try to play hardball for sure. And as I say, knowing the man, he's going to be difficult to deal with. He really is going to be a hard task, a hard man to bargain with, that's for sure.
So this is the thing I'm wondering, Harry, with your experience with Daniel Levy, right? We've got two different things here. On the one side, if I'm Daniel Levy, this is when I get my maximum value for Harry Kane. On the other side is that kind of attitude of, you will not tell me that you are going. So which one of those two wins out, do you think?
Well, I think, Daniel will think, you're not going to go unless I get the money I want. Okay, may depreciate in value. The owner of Tottenham, a very, very well-known man, said to me once, he makes Roman Abramovich look poor, Joe Lewis. I don't think they're going to be held to ransom by anybody. I just think they're going to hardball it and see where we go. Man City are going to have to pull up the money in the end, I think, if they want him.
So what does the manager do here, do you think, Harry? Like, if you put yourself in Nuno's shoes, you've just told us you had a player who made a very specific threat if you didn't sell him. When it's one of your top players, what do you do?
Well, he would have no power. He'd have no power in that situation. He wouldn't be involved in it, in all honesty. He would have no say whatsoever. When I had Luka Modric come to see me, Chelsea wanted Luka Modric. They'd offered to double his wages. Luka wanted to go, double his money. And I love Luka Modric. He was a fantastic person, great pro, great player. And for me, I'd have said, Luka, fine, we'll help you on your way. I can't blame you for doubling your money. It's a great move for you. But Daniel wouldn't budge, no, you're not going unless we get X amount of pounds. And so the deal didn't happen. He wouldn't budge.
And it's then about how you get the best out of that player. So that is pure man management that Nuno is going to need if that happens.
Yeah, Luke, but he was, he came back and played for a year. And maybe, I think Daniel said, look, give us a year and then we'll sell you. And I think they sold, obviously went to Real Madrid in the end. But in Harry's case, I don't see it. Are they going to get a year? Is he going to come back? What's he going to be like? I mean, he's already, 2 days not turning. I don't know listen, as much as I say I love Harry, I don't know if it's the right move. I don't know if it's the right way to go about it with Daniel. It's like you're trying to pile pressure on him. And I think the more you try to be like that with him, the worse he'll get.
Harry, I'm sure you've had players like do that, refuse to come to training. As a manager, do you welcome them back with open arms, or are you a bit sort of offish with them? How would you handle it?
Well, it's difficult to say, Glenn. It's it's really to do with the chairman. It's a case of if he feels he's been hard done by and he's been given his word that he could go, and now he's been. You need the if it's Harry Kane, you've got to get him. You want him to play, don't you, Glenn? You need him playing. And if you want to win, you want to keep your job and win football matches. You need Harry on side. The new managers come in. I mean, it'd be for him. He's thinking either sell him or if I can keep him, great. Otherwise, let's get the deal done. Let's get 3 or 4 new players in with that money. And maybe we'll have a stronger all-round team. Who knows? That can happen as well. Go and buy 3 or 4 top players, and we'll be better as a unit than what we were. We just relied on Harry. We have with Harry in the last 4 or 5 years, 6, 7 years, whatever. Maybe we might be better off taking the money and bringing in 4 top players.
Well, I want to put you back in the hot seat. I know you've been out of it for a little while now. If you were the manager now, how would you handle the situation? Obviously, you spoke about Luka Modric. Would you be going into Daniel Levy saying, come on, we need to get this deal done? We need to move him on because of everything that we've spoken about, or you're trying to hang on to him, or what?
You'd like to be able to do that. I don't think Daniel is going to listen to the manager. I really don't. This will be done between him and Joe Lewis on the phone. I heard that they were very upset when he said that he wanted to move just before the end of the season. They still felt they could get into, UEFA Cup and finish in the top 6 positions. That's what they were looking for. I think he did it before it might have been the Villa game or one of the games. And I think they were upset with his timing and the way it came out, and he made it public. And he'll dig, Daniel will dig his heels in. And this is the situation. You've got a long contract. You're getting good money. If somebody wants you, this is the figure. If they pay it, you can go. If they don't pay it, you stay here. It really, it will. That's how it will be with Daniel, and he loves it. This is his time of year, transfer window. He comes alive, and now he's got the biggest one of all. He'll be absolutely in. It's like Christmas for him.
Harry,
he loves it. Daniel loves it.
We'll finish with the most difficult one of all, Harry. End of the transfer window. Where do you think Harry Kane will be?
But I think he'll go. I think Man City will pull up. I think they'll know whoever gets Harry Kane, they are just getting such an incredible player, leader, professional, absolutely top bloke. So for Man City, they want to win a Champions League, pull up the money, buy Harry Kane.
Top man, Harry. Absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Nice to talk to you guys. Glenn, what are you doing this year?
Not much right now, Harry.
Come on, you've got a club?
No, I've called it a day, Harry.
Have you? Oh, that's a shame, Glenn. You used to do a good job. Jody as well. Did a great job at the O's last year, Come on, lads, get yourself back in the game. You're too good to be wasted on this radio station.
Oh, what a way to finish.
See you later,
Harry. Cheers,
Top man,
mate.
Harry.
Bye, lads.
The former Tottenham manager, Harry Redknapp. He didn't make a bid for me, though. I'm available. I'm unattached. I've got no club. I'm only 35. I can do a job.
I'm trying to work out who he's still managing. I might be able to.
I did a frantic bit of Googling there, because I was like, who's Harry Redknapp trying to sign Glenn Murray for?
I'm back.
I would sign for him anywhere.
Would you?
This is the Football Daily with Steve Crossman.
Thank you very much for listening. The next episode of the Football Daily will be with myself and Nader Manua. It is a special one as we sit down with one of the best characters in the Premier League. So make sure you look out for that on Wednesday evening.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcast.